Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session of the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs Conference. It is a session on COVID and hurricane season, emergency preparedness for families with disabilities. And we have our presenters for today are Amy Dawson, who is an emergency management program manager at the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. She is a founder of the Louisiana Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition. It is usually called MDAC, and that was founded in 2006 after the 2005 hurricanes Katrina and Rita. She is also a board member for the Louisiana Emergency Preparedness Association and the Louisiana 211 Coordinating Council, and she is a former member of the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs and still serves on committees for that council. And we also have Jessica Michot, who is founder of Trach Mommas of Louisiana, which was founded in 2016. If I'm correct, Jessica, you shake her head. And Trach Mommas has really filled in the gap for people that have more significant disabilities and are technology dependent, and has that organization has been recognized nationally for the work meeting the needs of that population during disasters. Jessica is also a current member of the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs. So we welcome both of you ladies to begin the presentation. Looking forward to it.
All right, thanks, Bambi. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, Bambi, are you going to share my slides?
Oh, you want me to share them? I thought you were going to share them. Can you share them, or you'd rather me to do it?
Okay, I have them up. How do I?
Yeah, I can do it if neither one of you want to do it.
It's usually better, Amy, if you're moving the slides.
Okay.
Do it. Let's do share screen.
Okay. Can you see it now? No. Screen share.
It's about to come up now. Okay, got it.
All right. So, as Bambi said, my name is Amy Dawson, and I work for the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. I've been here since 2006, and we're going to talk a little bit about hurricane season 2020 and some of the additional planning considerations we've made because of the COVID-19 environment. We're going to have on our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what is MDAC, the Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition. We're going to talk about emergency management, well, the roles and responsibilities of like local government and what's the role of the state. What about evacuation and sheltering with COVID-19, and a little bit about what you can do to be prepared. To talk about MDAC, I'm going to give it on over to Jessica.
Okay, Louisiana MDAC, it's Louisiana Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition. That's a mouthful, so we call it MDAC. It was formed in 2006 in direct response to life safety issue faced by older adults and people with disabilities during and after the 2005 hurricanes. Members include individuals, state agencies, nonprofit organizations, and for-profit businesses. It also includes some national or federal partners once we go into disasters. We open it to stakeholders. The mission of MDAC is to advocate for and support emergency management efforts that serve all people in Louisiana, particularly people with disabilities and those who are aging. MDAC believes that the needs and safety of all people, particularly those with disabilities and those who are aging, must be carefully considered and adequately addressed before, during, and after disaster and emergency situations within the state of Louisiana. The goal of Louisiana's MDAC is to serve as a collaborative resource so that appropriate emergency management related services and supports are equally accessible to people with disabilities and/or who are aging. MDAC will provide information and support to strengthen and expand emergency management efforts regarding disability-related and/or aging-related issues, support and contribute to capacity-building efforts for emergency managers, service providers, advocates, and individuals with disabilities and/or who are aging. And also develop and support resources and projects to better provide for the needs of people with disabilities and/or the aging before, during, and after a disaster or emergency within our state.
So talk a little bit about emergency management and to go back to like the foundation of where we are in Louisiana. The Louisiana Homeland Security and Emergency Assistance Disaster Act. It's Louisiana Revised Statute 29, Chapter 6. If you ever need to fall asleep at night or you're up bored and you need some great reading, this is a statute that talks about how Louisiana conducts emergency management, and it helps to define the roles and responsibilities of both the local parish leadership and our state leadership. Every parish has an Office of Emergency Preparedness. So everybody's parish that they live in has an Office of Emergency Preparedness. You might hear it called the OEP Director or the OEP. That is the your parish, your local Office of Emergency Preparedness. And every parish has to have their own emergency operations plan for their jurisdiction. And this includes planning considerations for COVID-19. So whatever jurisdiction you live in, it does have an Office of Emergency Preparedness, and your jurisdiction does have an emergency operations plan. Local offices, they have, one of the things that are unique to local emergency preparedness offices are they are the ones who are going to send you out warnings, and they have their own warning and alert system. It is very important for you to know if your parish has a local warning system and how do you sign up for it. In Baton Rouge, it's called Red Stick Ready. In New Orleans, that's NOLA Ready. Call your Office of Emergency Preparedness and ask them if they have a local warning or alert system that you can sign up for. And on GOSEP's website, and many of you might have seen this, we have the Evacuation and Preparedness Guide. And inside of the Evacuation and Preparedness Guide, or you can look it up online, there's a page that has all of the phone numbers, and maybe we can have Bambi send out a link to all of the participants that has the phone numbers of each local Office of Emergency Preparedness. It has their website, if there's a website. So I cannot stress enough to make contact or to know how to get in touch with your local Office of Emergency Management and find out if your parish has a local warning system. Some of the offices of preparedness have local special needs registries. I'm going to, despite if you have a personal feeling about registries or if they work or are effective, you should know if your parish has one. If your parish has one, call them and sign up. But that doesn't mean you just stop and you just say, hey, I'm going to put my name on the list. Ask them what this means for you. Do you have to register every year? Will someone call you in an emergency? Do you have to call and request assistance at the time that there's an emergency? I do know that New Orleans will call out their call list in the beginning of every disaster and reach out to say, hey, do you still need help? But all parishes are not created equal. Some parishes don't have a registry. Some parishes do have registries, but some of them operate them, each one a little bit differently. So if your parish has one and you want to sign up for those, for that registry, make sure you ask the questions of, what does this mean and what are you expecting out of me when we have a disaster? Part of parishes, they must use their own resources before they come to the state for assistance. Once they've exhausted their resources, then they can request assistance from other local or state partners. How do you know if you need to evacuate? How do you know if shelters are open in your jurisdiction? What if you need transportation? Pay attention to local officials. Those local officials will put out words on sometimes their social media pages. If it's a smaller event like a hazmat situation, they'll send their local fire department to the neighborhood. They put it on the news. So pay attention to your local officials is key and important. So what is GODA? What is the state agency that I work for? What is the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness? We are the emergency coordinating agency for state agencies that we plan for, respond to, and recover from emergencies. During an emergency, GOSEP activates the State Emergency Operations Center. It's really a place where all of the coordination comes together, all of the state agencies, nonprofit partners, and we manage the response and recovery utilizing what we call our Unified Command System. Unified Command is a team effort. It's the head of the Unified Command is our governor, and he sits with his cabinet level secretaries and heads of all of the different agencies, and they set really what the goals and objectives are for our emergency, and how do we support locals in responding to and recovering from disasters. This is a little picture of our Emergency Operations Center. When we activate for an emergency or disaster, we respond to activities to support parishes. We're here 24/7 when we're activated. We maintain liaisons and coordination with all parishes and the state and federal agencies. We provide operational command and coordination with all of our state partners. We call them Emergency Support Functions, or ESFs, and our federal partners. We also manage critical resources and commodities to support local response and recovery efforts. So what is the declaration process? I know sometimes people hear on the news that the parish has declared a local emergency or the state has declared an emergency. And I've been doing this for quite a while, so sometimes like, well, why are we in an emergency? You know, why is that an emergency? Well, when the parish declares an emergency, it allows them to use their local resources, sometimes outside of what the traditional use of those state agencies or those resources are for. So the parish has to declare an emergency before they can ask for resources from the state. So sometimes we'll have a water system or a smaller disaster. The parish has to declare a disaster before they can ask for stuff from our state partners and other resources. And just the same way, we have to declare a state of emergency for the state before we can ask for federal resources to come in and to support us. So sometimes you'll hear the state is, and the governor has declared an emergency. That's for us to use state agency partners such as our Department of Children and Family Services to run shelters instead of doing their normal job as their agency job, you know, doing their food stamp programs or child welfare. We take those employees and we have them run state shelters. And we can't ask for federal resources unless we have declared an emergency. So that's a little bit about the declaration process. It's the same thing for resources. So the parish has to exhaust all of their resources within their parish. That includes all of their parish offices, their agencies, their ability to contract for anything before they come and they ask for help from the state. We get those requests, we validate them, we authorize them, and we can go to another parish to get resources. We can go to our state agency partners. We can go to another state. That's what you see on my slide is the EMAC option. It's the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. It's a mutual aid that we have with all of 50 states and some territories where we can borrow assets from other states, or we can ask for help from FEMA if we have a federal declaration. So for the 2020 hurricane season, this is some of the projections that we had for hurricane system this year that came out, I believe, in May. These are just predictions. They do this every year. So the prediction was that in 2020, we'd have 16 named storms. 8 of those would be hurricanes. 4 of those would be major hurricanes. We're in the absence of an El Nino and a high La Nina, which means that we're in the a sweet spot for hurricane development in the tropics, and I think we've already seen that. I think I've seen that we're on G right now, and this is the earliest we've ever had a G named storm. So these are just the hurricane season predictions for this year. Those are some of the names we have already gone through: Dolly, Edward, Faye, and now we're on Gonzalo, which is about to enter into the Gulf or somewhere in the tropics right now. So we're on G already, and this was the predictions that we received in May. The official outlook was received May 21st, but all indications are that we would have a more active than normal season for this hurricane season. What it doesn't tell you is where the storm's going to make landfall. It doesn't tell you how strong the storms might be when they make landfall. They only give you a general idea of the potential and overall basin activity. The reality is we have to plan as though we're going to be impacted every year. And we have to plan for so many other emergencies that this is just predictions, and it just kind of puts us in the time frame of, yes, we are in hurricane season. And then we had the added planning considerations that we have for COVID. Really what I want to highlight on this slide is, out of everything, the direct fatalities that come from a hurricane storm surge is by far the largest threat in a hurricane. Water kills. Flooding from storm surge and heavy rainfall responsible for over 75% of the direct fatalities. Water as a whole is responsible for almost 90% of all direct fatalities. So, whether it's excessive rain or storm surge or all these other things, water is the main issue. Facts at a glance: most hurricanes, as we know, occur between August and September and October. 2020 has been unusual. Like I said before, most deaths are associated with storm surge. Many hurricanes produce tornadoes and often cause between 6 to 8 inches of rainfall in a short period. That's for the normal one. If anybody remembers Isaac, it just sat there forever and ever and ever and didn't move. So it produced a lot more rainfall than what was normal. So as we discussed before, storm surge poses the greatest threat to life and property, poses significant drowning. Evacuation must be heeded, as the storm surge can cause water levels to rise quickly. And in Louisiana, we are very familiar with storm surge and how quickly water can rise up in your homes, faster than you could have ever expected. You can't wait until the last minute. So know what your evacuation routes and have a plan in place. So are you ready? Hurricane preparedness and individual responsibility. Plan ahead. Prepare a disaster family plan, maintain a disaster supply kit, stock essentials for at least 72 hours, stay aware, watch and listen to your local officials, listen to your public officials and know what they're talking about. Some of the other things that would be really helpful to know in a hurricane situation, for any hurricane, is review your insurance policies, know your coverage, plan to purchase, if you can, flood insurance. So our pandemic considerations. We have moved forward with the planning assumptions that because of storm surge and because of the issues with water and storm surge and having water in your home, that we're going to evacuate. We're still going to call for the same evacuations. We're still going to do sheltering. Some of the planning considerations we have are that each parish, if you go to your local parish and to be evacuated, that everyone is going to be given a mask and hand sanitizer. We are going to, social distance on the bus, social distance in our shelters. We've expanded the square footage than we normally use in a normal hurricane situation for COVID and to take consideration for COVID. So each family really would have more space and distance between themselves and other family units. We have made considerations to provide some tentage. So really to make little isolation pods within our huge state shelters to reinforce social distancing and to try to isolate families who are, need that type of isolation within the larger shelter. We understand that it's not going to be a perfect situation, but we really need everybody to pay attention to local officials. And if it's going to look like it's going to be storm surge, we just ask that you please weigh out the risk of the storm surge versus, what your disability or what your health issues are at the chance you might catch COVID in one of our shelters. So some of that, to include in your family plan, please include the mask for your family, reinforce social distance guidelines, protect yourself and others if you're sick, maintain disinfectant and hand sanitizers, and practice good hygiene. The other thing is, if we don't get out in time and you don't evacuate and you stay in your home, then we're going to go into a search and rescue situation. I really hate to go back to the 2005 hurricane season of Katrina, but that's kind of what it looks like when large pockets of people stay, and especially scared of COVID and scared of going into congregate settings. That's what we'll have. So, or we could potentially have. So the other thing is that we have beefed up our planning for search and rescue. So I can tell you that when we go into a search and rescue situation, there is no social distancing. So if the wildlife and fishery is going to come and rescue the neighborhood on a boat or come and get you by helicopter, they're going to give out masks as they can. We're going to try to, but there won't be social distancing. You won't have 6 feet between you and the person driving the boat. So the important thing is to make sure if we are in, in a really talk to your local officials, know what those warnings are, know if it's safe for you to get out. Don't be scared to go to a shelter or call Red Cross or call your local parish and ask which shelters have a generator. A lot of times now they're listening to us and they have generators at some of our shelters. Majority of them we opened up for Hurricane Cristobal within the areas had generators. They picked buildings that had generators. Ask if there's a way that you could be socially distanced within the shelter. So what I'm saying is don't be scared at the risk of catching COVID and putting your life in danger with the storm surge. Because if you get into a search and rescue situation, most social distancing will go out the window. For this hurricane season and for COVID, we do have a toll-free reach out and keep calm during COVID that provides emotional support and links callers to the local governing entities. There's a mental health and crisis counseling. If you need help or you're uneasy about this, you can also call that helpline or reach out and text reach out to this phone number 741-741, and you can be connected to free confidential 24/7 crisis counseling via text. Now they're not going to be able to help you come up with your sheltering or your hurricane plan during COVID, but this is just if you need some crisis counseling. So what can you do to be prepared? And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, because she's pretty much an expert in, I'm the emergency manager and she's the expert in on these slides. So Jessica?
Thank you. So the first thing, stay calm. Cool heads prevail in times of emergency. That's easier said than done, and I know this. But one of the best ways to stay calm is to make a plan. Remember that you may have to update or change your typical yearly emergency plans. So I'll be honest and say, when my son came home in 2013, I looked at the papers that the support coordinator had given me to make our emergency plan. And I filled out just some random things. Okay, we're gonna go to this hotel, we're gonna go to that hotel, but I didn't put much thought into it. And it wasn't until I kind of replicated the same plan every year. It wasn't until 2016 when I'm looking at my emergency plan as the flooding is happening, and I'm saying, oh no, like half of these people on this list are in flood zones, or some of them I couldn't get to even if I wanted to. So you have to think about that, really put some thought and effort into it. But also, if planning gets too overwhelming, start small to keep grounded. And some ways to do that: make a list of things that need to be packed for each person. Some things that you can purchase ahead of time. And I suggest, like, if you can purchase an extra pack of socks or an extra pack of underwear that you can just put in the suitcase and that stays in the suitcase for whenever you're ready to evacuate. Or even come up with a list of potential hotels. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you shouldn't come up with your emergency plan for every situation, for hurricanes, for tornadoes, for fires at the refineries, for all of that. You should have a different plan for each activity. They can be similar, but they're all different emergencies. Have a family meeting to ensure everyone is aware of the plan. So many people my age have both adults and children who may or may not have disabilities. So it's not even your core family. We value family a lot in Louisiana. Think about the older individuals in your family. Think about, hey, my sister may have a kid with a disability. How are we gonna do? Are we gonna put in, if money's tight, are we gonna put in for hotel rooms? Or are we going to go to a campsite? Just start thinking about all that and making sure your family as a whole is aware. And it's also good to tell someone, yes, we tell our support coordinators, we tell people like that, but maybe have it written down to give to your direct support workers, to give to your nurses, to give to your neighbor, like, hey, this is what we plan to do. In addition to having contacts in your phone, make a hard copy list of doctors. Another thing I was very guilty of, I had all the emergency contacts in my phone, but I didn't have a hard document until 2016. Mental health professionals, we value mental health professionals, especially during these times with COVID. Make sure those, the doctors, the mental health professionals, the providers, such as nursing agencies, direct support agencies, support coordinators, and have any emergency after hours lines. If your doctor has an after hour line, then go ahead and put that in your phone. If mental health professionals, if you see a therapist and they say, here's my after hour line that you can call in any emergency, that really would come in handy. Evacuations, stay informed. So what I've been doing, we monitor COVID statistics in nearby states. This is all over the news, and who has high rates right now. So we know Florida has high rates. We know Texas has high rates. So where do you want to just keep in mind that these are always changing? Where do you want to evacuate? Do you want to go to Mississippi? Do you want to go to Tennessee? Do you want to go? Just keep in mind the COVID statistics. And also be aware, we typically evacuate to the northern part of the state, or we evacuate to other states. But be prepared to adhere to other states' guidelines on masks. Some may mandate it, some may not. You'd like to know that ahead of time so you can be prepared. Mandated quarantine periods. We saw this a lot at the beginning of COVID, where I'm trying to think of the state. Maybe Florida said no. Texas closed off their border and said, no, you can't come. But different states had like a 14-day quarantine period. So you want to be mindful of that as well. Let any providers, including support coordinators, know if you don't plan to stay at home. This is important because not only that if you have a waiver, the state has to track you, of course, like make sure you're not at home or make sure you are wherever you say you are. They need to know those kind of things just to know that everyone's safe. And providers such as nurses, direct support workers, we don't want to endanger them by having them come out to your house when you're not there. Bringing extra medical supplies to change out more frequently when evacuating. We typically say bring 5 days worth of supplies. I would go ahead and bring extra supplies because with COVID going around, you'd be able to, if you do end up in a shelter, you'd be able to change the vent tubing, the feeding tubing. You'd want to change that more often since it may be exposed to more germs than you normally would at home. Be sure to include a 5-day supply of medication. That includes over-the-counter medications. If you're going to need Tylenol, ibuprofen, any over-the-counter medicines for bowel movements, things like that. Think of everything your family is going to need. Medical supplies, and then masks for the entire family. How many masks do you need to be able to keep clean for 5 days for your entire family? Disinfectant, if it's Clorox wipes, whatever it is. I know those are kind of short run right now, so just start thinking about what you can use if you are in a congregate setting that you have to clean your equipment more often with, and gloves if at all possible. Probably to me the most important for mental health is bringing any necessary comfort items. This includes sensory items, books, headphones. The sensory items, I know you may not be able to bring a ton of stuff into shelters, but what do you and your family need? Do you need a book to keep calm? Does your child need headphones? Do they need a special blanket, a favorite toy? Make sure you bring all of that, because it kind of makes, even hotels, campsites, things like that, it still makes a difference. Some of our kids with autism, or some of our individuals with autism, I know this comes into play a lot because you're out of your norm, so you're gonna have that kind of barrier to navigate. So comfort items really come in handy. I'm gonna turn it back over to Amy.
All right, so Jessica, you said some important things that triggered some things for me. Is, you know, if you have no other choice, congregate sheltering, I know there's misnomers that, oh, I have a disability, I can't go to a Red Cross shelter. Red Cross does have policies that everyone is welcome, and each one of our shelters has the responsibility to provide reasonable accommodations. And you have to help us, you can tell the person at the front desk in your intake that you need a reasonable accommodation, and they will move heaven and earth to provide those accommodations. The first time a sensory room for individuals with autism was ever enacted in a Red Cross shelter was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, after the 2016 floods. So don't be afraid to ask for reasonable accommodations if you have to go to a congregate setting. And if you end up at one of our state run shelters, same thing, ask for reasonable accommodations. If they cannot provide those reasonable accommodations, they will have to make allowances to help you get to a place where you can be sheltered safely in a congregate setting. So please do not, put people's lives at risk, or I'm going to take my risk and I'm just going to stay at home because I'm thinking you cannot go to a congregate setting. The other thing on Jessica's slide that says, please let your support coordinators or anybody know if you don't plan to stay at home. Let those people know where you're going. I can't stress that enough, because after the hurricane and we're in a big, evacuation, we have some of those agency and support coordinators calling us, wanting us to give them some of our shelter lists, trying to help identify where their clients are, where their constituents are. We saw this in the Centers for Independent Living after Florida. I went to after Hurricane Michael went to Florida, and there's a need to want to know where those people are, but Red Cross won't give us a list of names who have evacuated to their shelters.
I was going to say too, Amy.
Yes, if you end up at one of our state shelters, we might have a little bit more leeway to tell those support coordinators or your agencies who support people who have disabilities, they have cognitive issues. Please when you're helping your clients and your constituents develop those plans, please make sure they know to call you and tell you where they are. Because a lot of times we will not be able to just look up a name on the list and say, oh, well, Amy Dawson went to, the 123 Civic Center. As state planners, we might not know that, and some people don't want other people to know where they are. So make that a part of your plan. Anybody who might be looking for you, or when you're helping, especially our citizens that have, some cognitive issues, make sure they have your agency phone number, your advocacy center's phone numbers to say, hey, wherever you end up, why don't you give me a call so I know where you are. So those things are very important in evacuations and having everybody stay informed. So reach out, stay well. Individual responsibility, stay active, get your rest, keep calm. Like Jessica said, Rome wasn't built in a day. Catch up on your sleep, hydrate with water. And again, for COVID, we enacted our crisis counseling helpline. So reach out to those crisis counselors, especially if you and you're building your hurricane plans and you become overwhelmed and you need some extra support. Make sure you reach out. We have that resource available. Other ways you can stay informed. GOSEP has a webpage called Get a Game Plan. This is where you can go in and you can help build your own family plan. It can help you build a business plan, a mitigation plan, and there's also a section for kids plans. So to help you give you some context and help you put together those plans and kind of make a checklist of things that you might not even be thinking about at the time. So make sure you go to www.getagameplan.org, and that's a good place to start when you're trying to develop your own emergency or sheltering in place plan. I am messing this up. So get a game plan. The other thing is, I held it up earlier, is our emergency publication. It's a Louisiana Preparedness Guide. So you can call your local office of emergency preparedness and get one of these pamphlets. It has a lot of things about evacuation, sheltering. Some of our evacuation maps are in here. Call your parish. Sometimes parishes have them. Sometimes Red Cross will have them. It's also online on our website. You can find it in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. The Spanish ones, I believe we ran out of the ones that are actually in hard copy and print, and we did not print the ones in Vietnamese in a hard copy. So those can be found online and you can download them. If anybody with agencies that need copy of these evacuation plans to give to the people that you support or you're helping develop, you can send me an email and we'll see about getting you some so you can give these out to the people you might serve. We also have the State's Joint Information Center. It's called the JIC, so that we're speaking with one voice as state partners and all state agencies, and we're speaking with one voice and we're giving people clear instructions as one voice. So our Joint Information Center is where the press staff will be and help organize the messages that go out. We also have the Louisiana EAS, the Emergency Alert System. That's that alert system you'll hear on your TV that has a real loud beep and come through on your TV. We can control those messages here from our office. And we also have NOAA weather radios. We also have several public information. We've had public service announcements, radio, television, print. We get a lot of football players. I know at the beginning of COVID, we got Coach O to do a COVID PSA. So we do have some PSAs that are available. You can go to our website or get a game plan and you can see some of the PSAs we have. We also have the Get a Game Plan app. So we're trying to get technological and savvy over here so you can download the Get a Game Plan app for your smartphone. You can upload pictures of some of your important documents. You can mark yourself safe if you want to use this. So our emergency preparedness guides are inside of this app. So if you want to download that, that would probably be a good idea. So this is an emergency public information. It's called emergencyla.gov. This is where the state in an emergency will turn on this website, and it will have important links to the disaster. So it'll have links to FEMA and stuff. This is only activated in an emergency. So when an emergency happens, you can go to emergency.la.gov, and it's kind of supposed to be a one-stop shop for where you can go and get information during an emergency. Again, this is only activated during an emergency. We also have Alert FM. You can download this free app for your phone. It transmits digital messages based on geographic, so based on where you are, where you live. You can also turn on other things. So my boss lives in St. Martinville, so he can check off to get alerts and weather alerts and emergency alerts for East Baton Rouge Parish where he works. He can get alerts for St. Martinville. So this is a good app that you can download that will give you alerts and notifications. There's no fees. Sometimes there's these little receivers that people have that you see a picture of it down here in the corner. That's for some of our emergency management professionals. Some of our schools have this type of equipment. But for the average user, you can just go and download Louisiana Alert FM. We also have social media. GOSEP has a Facebook page. You can get a lot of information and links off of our Facebook page. Parishes also have social media. A lot of parishes will sometimes help you do damage assessments. So we see one parish, they went and flew a drone after some flooding, and so people want to get home and know if their house is okay, or they want to know if their house has been flooded. So the parishes will fly drones and put drone footage so you know if your street was dry. Or you can ask questions on there like, hey, can you go take pictures of this? And sometimes the parishes will do that. So go to our GOSEP Facebook page for more information, and make sure, type in Ascension Parish, Office of Emergency Management on Facebook. They have a Facebook page. So we kind of embrace the realm of social media, and we have our Facebook page. We also have Twitter. GOSEP has a Twitter page. Some of the parishes have Twitter. I'm not familiar with Twitter, so I'm going to leave it at this with Twitter, but this is another place that you can get information. We also have podcasts. Our communications director has podcasts. They're all archived. You can go to gosep.la.gov/resources/podcast and look at the topics. If it's something that you may be interested in, you can listen to those podcasts. Or if there's one that you think, we might want to hear something about, you can email me and say, hey, we can do a podcast on this. But our podcast all of the archive podcasts are on there. You can go there to get more information. You can find us on the web at gosep.la.gov and getagainplan.org. And that's all we have for today. This is my contact information, Amy Dawson at la.gov, and my phone number. And this is Jessica's contact information if you need more information from us in case we missed something, or in case you need more information about emergencies and how to prepare for evacuations and sheltering. Jessica, do you have any final words?
Our email's wrong in that.
Okay.
I left off, it might have been autocorrect, so I'm going to put in the chat. It's trachmommas@gmail.com.
So it's a plural mamas.
It's a plural mama. We're multiple
All right.
mamas.
Yeah.
Do we have any other language on the website for GOSEP?
Any other language?
Yes.
What do
Lauren,
you mean language?
she doesn't see information on other languages on the website.
The only other thing we have on our GOSEP website are the evacuation guides. The evacuation guides come in Spanish and Vietnamese. I can't see the chat. I guess I have to stop sharing.
Unfortunately, YouTube is a little bit behind, so they probably won't hear you for another 3 minutes.
Okay.
Well, on behalf of the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, we'd like to thank our participants and our panelists for this portion of the conference, Ms. Jessica Michot and Ms. Amy Dawson, who are always great advocates and supporters of our work. At this time, we're going to take a break for our next panel session, Accessibility Law, which will begin at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.